Okay, just because a phone has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 or an 8 Gen 3 chip does not make it a flagship phone.
What?
And just because it's got a glass back doesn't make it a premium phone.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And just because it's got a 50 megapixel or a 64 megapixel camera does not make it a great camera smartphone either. Let me help you understand what specs to really look at when you're thinking of getting yourself a phone in 2024. Let's go. Okay, first, everyone wants a fast phone. No one wants to be stuck with a phone that's slow. And that's where companies tend to fool the customers the most. So bear with me on this. So many people think that if a phone has a really fast processor, then it must be a really fast phone. No, a big no. See, performance is a combination of processor, internal storage, RAM, battery, and the software that drives all of it. And so when a company says, oh, we've got Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, no, it means squat if they don't couple it with the right parts and a good software to drive it all. So here it is. In terms of processor, anything that's equal to or more than a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, these phones are fast enough for pretty much anything you'd want to do. And so when you're thinking of getting a phone, look at these three things as a group and then decide which one feels best to you. And if you look at these three things together, the RAM, the processor, the internal storage, then the phones you see on the left are the best ones to go with. But this is solely in terms of performance only. For example, iQOO 11 is a high-performance smartphone, but it doesn't mean it will deliver flagship experience. All this table tells us is which phone will give best performance and second best performance and decent performance and so on. Also note that in 2024, a lot of these smartphones will see their successor too. For example, the iPhone will have iPhone 16, Samsung will have S24, OnePlus will have a Nord 4 and Pixel might see a Pixel 9. So keep that in mind. Alright. Now I want to talk about display because I think after performance, it is the most important thing. And why shouldn't it be? After all, what do you do on your phone the most? You look at it, right? Now within display also, there are quite a few things that you can talk about. So let me just go stepwise, okay? First is obviously size. And I think it's a very personal thing. I do not like very big displays because I find them uncomfortable. So I pretty much go with a 6.1 inches works just fine for me. But again, you do you. Now, in terms of display tech, I think majority of the smartphones today have some form of OLED. So I think you don't really have to worry about that. Just make sure it's OLED. And so what you should really look at now is HDR capability, brightness, and refresh rates. So today, a decent phone would have about 1300 nits of peak brightness, 120Hz refresh rate, and a 10-bit color depth, basically a more color accurate display. And if you're someone who's fond of watching Netflix HDR titles, that's an additional thing that you might want to check before you get the phone. Now, the problem is that kind of info is not really something that companies, outright mention. So you might want to look into a, YouTube review of that phone, or if you don't find it, walk into a store, install Netflix on a demo phone, and check that certification, whether it's there or not. Now you can get really picky. Does it have a blue light filter? Is it TUV Rhineland certified? What about PWM? Is it a flicker-free display? I mean, if you get so specific, you'll run out of choices. So just get your basics right: brightness, refresh rate, color depth, have a size in your mind, you're good to go. And here are phones ranging from the best displays to minimum required display parameters. Again guys, there's no way I can mention all phones here, but this will give you a fair idea. Now again, in 2024, Moto might see Edge 50, iQOO might see a Neo 8, Vivo can see a V30, Pixel will have a Pixel 9, but you can make those deductions for yourself. Now, let's talk about durability. And there are really just two things to protect, right? Protect the insides and the outsides. Now, if your phone has a glass back, then some protection is essential because even with minor drops, there's always risk of cracking the display and the back. So at minimum, you'll get Gorilla Glass 3 or Asahi Dragon Trail. But if you want something to survive harder falls, then your phone should have Gorilla Glass 5 at the very least. I honestly think plastic or vegan leather are really great options. I mean, they're durable, they're not fragile, they're lightweight, and no fingerprints. Now let's talk about the protection inside, which is your water and dust resistance. And I think some sort of IP rating does give you some assurance that even if you did drop your phone into water for a few seconds, it'll be fine. However, please note that no phone company covers liquid damage, even if your phone is under warranty. And secondly, almost all phones today are water resistant to some extent, even if they've not paid to get certified. So, even if you do get yourself a phone without an IP certification, don't worry, it is resistant to some extent. But, don't take my word for it. At your own risk. Now, let's come to the most meaty and confusing part, the cameras. And there are really just two things here, the camera hardware and the camera software. And different companies mix these two things in different ways to achieve different results. So Pixel, in my opinion, takes the best daytime photos, even better than iPhone, but bad videos. iPhone takes the best videos day or night and still very good pictures. Samsung is somewhere in between the two, takes really good punchy photos, better videos than Pixel, but not as good as the iPhone. In fact, I've done a full video comparing all these three phones. You'll get it here in the card, so if you're interested, definitely go through that too. Chinese smartphone makers, they come with really good camera hardware, but very inconsistent picture processing algorithm, and again, very bad videos. So here's my 2 cents. First, camera performance is a lot about R&D, and companies like Samsung, Google, and Apple invest heavily, and that's why they are at the forefront of, camera performance and innovation in smartphones. And second, even as a user, you must have some understanding of lighting and framing and a bit of photo editing. I've said this in my previous videos as well. I know people working with 3-year-old OnePlus phones who can take better photos than most people working with an iPhone 15 Pro Max. You need to know a bit of photography for this. But again, having said all of that, if camera is your main priority, you can't let it go, and you do have some understanding of, photography and videography, then you should prefer to get yourself either an Apple phone, a Google phone, or a Samsung phone, okay? But still, if you want to take a look at the entire spectrum, here it is. Again, in 2024, when S24 or the iPhone 16 or the Pixel 9 will come out, they will definitely be the best alongside the ones that you see here right now. Pixel is probably better than both Apple and Samsung in daytime photos, but it really struggles in low light and videos. Vivo X100 is also coming in the month of December 2023, so you might want to wait for that if you're a Vivo fan. But if you're not really buying a phone for best camera performance, then these phones in good and decent list can be considered. Now, let's talk about software. And again, there are 2 parts to it, software features and software upgradability. So Samsung is probably the most feature-packed with its One UI. It has more features than you'll ever use, maximum customization and personalization options, and majority of One UI phones come with a default 4 years of Android upgrades. Next, I prefer Oxygen OS on OnePlus phones. It looks close to stock Android experience, but it still packs like a ton of features over and above for customization. And they typically come with about 3 years of Android upgrades. In fact, the OnePlus Open comes with 4 years of Android upgrades. iOS is quite feature-packed too, but not as flexible as Android skins. But iOS guarantees up to 6 to 7 years of OS upgrades, which I think is the best in the industry, except maybe Pixel 8, which I think gives you 7 years of OS upgrades in the Android world. But that I think is fantastic. And then there's also Motorola MyUX and the Pixel smartphones, right? So they are probably the closest to Android stock experience, very minimal, very clean, very bloat-free. So yeah, that's also there if that's your style. And then there are Chinese manufacturers, and their skins have a lot of stuff going on. So their Android skins are also quite feature-packed, very customizable. You can personalize a lot of things, but then some of them will have ads or a lot of bloatware, like hot apps, hot games, stuff like that. And they typically come with 2 years of Android upgrades. Typically, there could be more. I'm not saying that they're not options, but yeah. So it's the kind of thing you have to be prepared for. And again, Chinese smartphones do come at a lower price, and that's their way of balancing it out. So yeah, choose wisely. If you want maximum upgradability, choose the Pixel 8 series or the iPhones. If you want decent upgradability, like 3 or 4 years, and you want a lot of features, you want customization, personalization, you can then opt for Samsung's One UI or OnePlus Oxygen OS, right? And the Chinese skins, I've already told you the issues, but they do come at a lower price. So if your budget doesn't permit, they're pretty good. Just a few bloatware and ads, which you can get rid of, by the way. Lastly, let's talk about battery and charging. Now see, most phones today actually come with 5000 mAh. I can't even list them out, there's so many of them. But anything below 4000 mAh is probably not going to be, lasting you through the day, given today's usage and frequency. In any case, just for your reference, I've listed some phones along with their capacities. I'm not listing phones that have 5000 mAh capacity because that's like a big list. Like all phones have that capacity. But yeah, if you want phones that have massive capacities like 6000 mAh, it's these ones right here. And then the ones with least capacities are on the right side. Not too many of these actually. Now, if charging speeds are very important for you, then I've also segregated phones across different charging speeds. Brands like Samsung and Apple have typically refrained from giving very high charging speeds in the interest of, protecting your battery and increasing its lifespan, while Chinese smartphone makers have been pushing the limits of charging speeds. And if that's something that you're looking forward to, if it's really important for you when buying a smartphone, then definitely you could look at these. So there you go, guys. I promised you a guide, and this is what it was. My attempt was to guide you to understand the things that you should be looking at when buying a smartphone and not fall for stuff that companies tell you. You'll be able to look at the specs and understand exactly what they mean now. I hope so. And again, I may not have articulated everything perfectly, and if you still have questions, doubts, concerns, put them in the comment section. I'll reach out to you there and we'll talk over there. And that's it, guys. If this video was helpful, which I'm really hoping it was, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification icon, and mark all. It really helps the channel grow. And please share it with people that you think can benefit from this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.